Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Understories with me, your host, Lindsay Fowler. This week we're speaking to Ihor Hulyahrodskyy, founder and creative director of Ochi Design, based in Vancouver, Canada. Ochi Design is a presentation agency that helps startups and companies raise funds, sell products. It helps them explain complex ideas and helps them actually hire great people. Ihor hails originally from the Ukraine, and his story is incredible. Yes, he runs his own creative business, and he's growing and learning how to do that side of things, and we talk all about that. He's so open about those specific challenges. But what's more amazing is that he's faced these challenges under the shadow of war and migrating to a new country. To say he's resilient and adaptable is an understatement, but that experience has really shifted his focus. Now he looks to prioritize projects that align with his values above all, and something which, to be fair, really resonates so much with me, the power of boundaries and being able to say no to maintain a balance between work and life. I'm so grateful to Ihor for his candor and his warmth, especially discussing such troubling experiences. It is a reminder for us all that we see each other through the lens of the external, be it by social media or whatever. But everyone in the entrepreneurial game is negotiating challenges and worries that are both great and small alongside building businesses. A reminder to give each other lots of grace. Before we get started, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating or review wherever you're watching or listening to this. Tell a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified about future episodes, which come out every other Tuesday. And now, over to Ihor. Ihor, it's amazing to have you on Understories. Thanks so much for coming on. For people who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, sure. Thank you for inviting Lindsay.
My
name is Ihor. My name is Ihor Hulyahrodskyy. I'm the founder and creative director at Ochi Design. It's a presentation agency that helps startups and forward-thinking companies raise funds, sell products, explain complex ideas, and hire great people. Basically, we create tailored presentations that help to secure investment from the first pitch to IPO.
So I didn't realize this until recently. I think it was a couple years ago. I did some market research with a designer, and his thing was only doing pitch design, like presentation design. I am so amazed that this is actually such a specific niche within the industry. Can you talk a bit about like how you got into this? Because to me, I always thought kind of a presentation was almost like a secondary thing to a
Right.
product, like, but it's especially when people are getting funding these days, it's a big deal. Can you talk a bit more about that?
It's a big deal. Sure. Presentation business is fresh. Certainly, is fresh, and basically people know and are very much aware of web design, any type of graphic design, illustrations, logo design, branding. And it's very common because it's taught in universities and it's taught in academias, and it has already a couple of years under the belt. But it doesn't mean that the presentation business just didn't exist there. It didn't had enough of exposure because nobody knew how to do that. So there were a couple of big agencies and maybe some individuals who were helping big companies release products, for example, like iPhone, or big conferences with public speaking angle like TED Talk. So basically, these were the presentations that were dominating the market, but not much than that. So when I'm saying we are a presentation agency, we're not only develop and design and even strategize or architecture these presentations, narratives, messages, but also we help shape the way companies look, sound, and interact with their customers, or sometimes inside. So when I say hire people, that means we can shape up the internal presentations, the onboarding decks, the playbooks for salespeople.
So it's visual communications, but from like sort of the outward facing in terms of, say, getting funding, getting people to know about your work, all that kind of stuff. But it's also internally about like how you communicate with your people and how you talk to explain things. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct.
That's really interesting. So is your background in graphics, and then you end up segueing into this, or how did you get into this?
Not at all. My background is I'm BA in law, and I was about to become a prosecutor. My major is in criminal justice.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And my MA is in communication, media communications, and journalism. So no, I don't have a formal education of a graphic designer at all.
Yeah,
However, I
yeah.
was always involved in some minor graphic design projects and marketing initiatives as a hobby
Right.
of mine. I loved it. It's something that I
Mm,
would do still if nobody will pay me anyway. And
mm,
that's probably a formula for a good start. But I
mm.
didn't decide, or I didn't choose to become this sort of a presentation expert or a presentation designer. I
Yeah.
was working at the time at Nestle, it's a big corporation we all know, as a digital analyst, basically analyzing all their external communication. What do they put online, and how do customers respond to the initiatives? And everybody, not except me, but probably everybody in the office, thousands of people, they were presenting these kind of results every day to the superiors and the colleagues. And not only these results, but also any type of analysis, reports, everything was communicated through presentations, at,
Wow.
as you could expect from the corporation.
Yeah.
But the quality of these presentations were, were, were very bad, were very poor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
probably the whole approach was that it needs to be done, so we'll do it in a very shitty way. And I was afraid
Yeah.
that my destiny, my future, the company will depend somehow on the presentations that nobody will ever understand. So I decided there is a way to change here.
Oh my
There is
gosh.
there is an opportunity for improvement. I can do better.
Yeah.
I exactly know what needs to be communicated. I will shape the
Mm,
narrative and invest a little bit more time, not in the research itself, but in the looks of the presentation, in the narrative, in the messages, in the way I will tell this story. And surprise, surprise, we realized that the whole company is investing hundreds of thousands of dollars in a market that basically isn't as competitive as they were ever thinking at the time.
mm-hmm.
With the brands that isn't a direct competitor because of the confusion in the analysis, and so they didn't know why the brand isn't performing, which they realized in the presentation I showed to them.
Mm.
So there was a major breakthrough. They understood, wait, do we hire people and invest time in doing something that is completely irrelevant?
Yeah.
So the CEO of Nestle at the time emailed me and said, "That was amazing. Could you teach us to do better?"
Oh my God, that's so you're like, there might be a business model here.
I didn't know you can get money for that, so I said, "Yeah, I can. I just did one presentation ever.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never did before." Because at university, as at law school, you don't do presentations. You present
No.
yourself. The
Yeah.
word and is the medium, but here was different. Like I knew a
Yeah.
couple of examples. My cousin was working at a startup, Zapier it was called,
Yeah.
and so
Oh
he
yeah,
was he
Zapier.
was
Yeah.
yeah, Zapier.
Yeah.
It's a local
Yeah.
Canadian company though.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, now I know. And then so he was designing a couple of pitch decks, and so he showed me, and I was able to comment on that and say my
Yeah.
humble opinion. But that's
Yeah.
overall, that's whole experience before I started at Nestle. But in order to deliver and teach people to do better, I had to learn myself. That meant
Mm.
I would have to find and research all the books ever written on the topic, all the speakers that said something, so I cannot embarrass myself. I can jump and I
Yeah.
can teach them do better.
How many
That's
books are
what I
written
did.
about this? How many books are
And
written
not
about
not a
it?
lot, not a lot, under 50,
150. Oh, that's small
less
number.
less than 50.
Less than 50. Oh, okay. Um,
Yeah.
so how long did it take you to kind of get to a place where you were feeling really confident and comfortable with it?
A year more. A year more.
Okay. Okay.
Because I was applying at master's degree at the time,
Mm,
to gain my. I wanted to be a communication expert and marketing
yeah.
expert, not a designer. I love to be and to do design, but I never knew somebody will pay me for that. So when I was applying to this university, I actually got inside, and since the first seminar, since the first interaction with and engagement with lecturers and professors, I realized I get higher marks, way higher marks than everybody else on average.
Uh-huh.
And so I was curious, why is so? And they said, that's because you present better. That's because your presentation looks much more professional and awesome. So guess what?
So was this when you were like, oh, maybe there's something with this?
Certainly, I thought, wow, yeah, there is something there. Like, I don't know yet what. Like, I definitely don't know if somebody could pay me doing this, and I don't know what I'm doing at all. Like, I'm thoroughly trying to figure out on the way. So they invited me to do workshops for the whole faculty and then institute, and yeah, I was delivering my master classes through like first months of education, already teaching something that I totally don't know what I'm doing. But it worked. It worked.
I mean, that's what
People
they
were,
say, isn't it? Though, is that like when you learn to teach something, you learn it better yourself because you're finding out a way of explaining it. Did it really kind of what's the word, crystallize for you and how to do it well when you were doing the teaching?
yes, because I was seeing the results from other people based on what I'm
Right.
saying and the concepts I'm sharing. So my mantra these days is making complex simple, and that's where it all started.
What are some of I mean, I've got so many questions now because especially when you're dealing with, I'm sure a lot of your clients are dealing with complex ideas that they need to communicate simply, right? I'm one of those people, right? It's like, you work in what you think is quite simple because you're used to it, you understand it, you understand the language and all that. But then when you try to explain it to people, sometimes it can, you use jargon terms, or you're trying to explain things that are maybe they just have no understanding of actually what you're talking about. What are some of the things that someone like a layperson could do to make the way they communicate better?
Mm-hmm. Usually the confusion comes from not understanding well enough on what depths of expertise your counterpart is, your audience. Assuming they know enough to understand what you're saying, but not enough to explain them what you really do. And I think first you have to understand what is the whole point of communication. Why do you do this? What do you want to share, and why? In what context? Like, is it a written communication? Is it a face-to-face chat? Is it a coffee break? Whatever. It all shapes the format and all shapes the depths that you would have to go in and the timing you have. And the most important is who you talk to, your audience. It is the crucial part because basically you have to send the message, you have to deliver that message in a way that they will understand and act upon that message. So it will make a difference if we need to influence their action, persuade them to do something, entertain, or even teach them. We need to understand at what level or depths of expertise, understanding of the topic they have, so that we can build upon that. If we use jargon or difficult dictionary, very difficult words, it's something that only a tiny group of professionals and nerds can understand. That's the challenge number one. They probably don't get it, and they will assume that you're trying to be basically something. How do I say it? Probably you would be very unrelatable because of that, because they can't relate to the topic in their minds. They can't figure that out. They don't see the themselves in the stories, and that's probably the first and the main challenge. Even in the startups, in the startup world especially, founders assume they know so much that they really don't know where to start to shape this up.
Yeah, this is true. And I also think there's something about being that third person that can help sort of solidify that message and make it much clearer because, having to explain it to somebody else, having to have somebody else who doesn't know these sort of intricacies of your business or actually even what you do, having being that person that can help kind of filter that through must be so useful for people. I mean, I work with loads of architects, right? And architects and designers as well. They talk a lot about, they've been in their industry for such a long time. They talk about these things that they do, and they're dealing with a family who wants to redo their home or something, and they've never been in, they don't know what an architect does. They don't understand party wall awards and things like that, all these sort of things, and they use that phraseology, and it can feel yeah, as you say, like isolating, like the client doesn't feel like they're, it's like, I've heard some people say that when you use jargon or you're using words that are so specific to your industry, it makes you and trying to like make you sound smart or something like that. But actually, I understand that when people use big words or whatever because they're trying to sound smart. But if you're really actually just know your industry and you don't realize other people don't know it, like you're not doing it intentionally. So someone like you can come along and be like, oh no, what's the value that you bring to somebody? Like, what problem are you trying to solve? Who are you trying to solve it for? That kind of thing. So interesting.
So I find that that's quite very compelling because I think our brains are wired to information that we know in the ways that we assume that now everybody knows the same thing because we are so familiar with the topic. So
Right.
where we usually start is we try to assume we know nothing at all, whatever industry, even if we have some experience in that industry.
Yeah.
Hundreds of projects doesn't mean anything
Yeah.
until we start really figuring out what the message is, what the context is, try to research the industry. Sometimes we have glossaries of terms for like 15 pages so that our team can speak a little bit similar to the way founders speak, so that we can have a
Wow.
conversation on the level that I could understand them, so I can
Right.
bridge that gap with an audience to tell them what they need to know. And naturally, there is not much time to learn as much as founders did, so I will never ever know as much and have the depth. But what, as a professional, I'm trying to do here, my aim is to figure out what's the most essential part here that needs to be communicated, that matters to other people.
Do you ever get pushback from people that you work with saying, no, this isn't it. You've missed something?
Sometimes yes, but when we trying to somehow build this so basically when they come to me, they always assume they know everything, and that's true, they know more than me.
Yeah.
And they think they know what needs to be done here. And when we start with this, our strategy, or I call it audit, basically deconstructing everything on smaller atoms, now they have a clear picture and the better view of everything that they have, and it needs to be communicated, needs to be designed, and understanding of the audience. Sometimes we even do like when the moment allows us, is interviewing the real customers and trying to figure out what do they want, or specifically investors. When we have that chance, that's awesome, that's perfect. There is I say it usually in team internally, so I have to rephrase it in English because I say it specifically to one person in Ukrainian. Then there is never too much of analysis here. There is never too much of information. It's our job to filter that information to the most essential bits, to the things that are the most important, that value the most, and show it to the founder, so he can make a informed and educated decision based on the information presented from a data point of view. It's really about data. We're trying to sort so many data under categories and then show it to him what matters and what doesn't. And usually when he sees it, he says that we understand his business more than he does. So that's a compliment.
Amazing.
I take.
Yeah, that is a compliment. But also, I think you have that benefit of being, I guess, possibly less emotionally invested too. You can, by being able to sort of really go into the deep sides of things, you're not going to be filtering it. You're not going to be worrying about, I don't know. I can't, I mean, we all know we're like really emotionally attached to our businesses. It's very normal, right?
Yeah.
But to be that third person, you can be like, but I think that's so interesting because we do an audit as well. And I think it's such an amazing experience to go into that deep dive with people and really understand their businesses, and then present back to them what they've said and show them that you've listened to them. It's it's interesting for us, and I imagine it's interesting for you, but I think it's probably the same. Clients are like, oh my God, how did you go so deeply into our business? This is crazy. So, okay. So, I was going to ask you. So, what was the catalyst for starting Oki? Is it
Mm-hmm.
Oki or Ochi? It's Oki, right?
Ochi. Ochi.
Ochi.
Yes. Ochi means eyes in Ukrainian.
Oh, does it?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Because I mean, I should say that you're Ukrainian, but you live in Vancouver. Is that right?
That's correct.
You're in Vancouver, yeah. So you have lived there for 3 years, if I remember correctly. Is it 3 or 4?
For more or less, I would say on and off 8.
Oh, yeah, I've 8. Okay.
But with the gap for this education and meeting my
Yeah,
wife,
yeah,
getting married, getting back.
yeah. Life things. Is your wife Canadian or is
Yeah.
she Ukrainian?
No,
She's
she's
one.
Ukrainian, and I don't think
Oh.
I would be in Ukraine unless the war started. And yes, that
Mm,
was a catalyst for us coming here. We had a
mm,
contract with the company we all know. We both know it's the future with the
mm.
Krista,
Yeah,
and also I have my cousin here who I haven't seen a couple of years. So I thought, let's develop this course that we were both talking about with the future in the same
yeah,
time zone. Why not Vancouver? I've been here before. I love the town. Let's do it. So
yeah.
we bought the ticket on like January 1st. I told her like before the new year, tomorrow I buy the ticket to Canada. She said, no, you won't because it's expensive. It's ridiculously expensive. But yeah, we did.
Oh,
So when the war started, we were already on a timeline of going to Canada, but we just
right.
didn't come back
Gosh. So, I mean, it's such a, I mean,
yet.
it must be so, yeah, yet. I was going to say yet. It must be such a strange experience because you had your business, didn't you, in the Ukraine first, and then you guys moved after. You didn't start it in Vancouver, did you?
I was doing some freelance gigs in Vancouver, but I
Mm-hmm.
won't say it's a business. I would say it's an experiment and creative, creative exploration, discovery, sort of. Business was established in Ukraine. It was working worldwide. I always say to the clients that
Yeah,
COVID never ended for us. That's
yeah,
how it feels.
yeah.
Distributed team all over the places, all over the world, which allows us to be flexible. But
Mm.
we're starting establishing a strong internal team with physical presence in an office just a week before the
Wow.
war. We almost leased like huge office space in downtown Lviv, which like it isn't downtown. I
Wow.
would say it's office in the center
Yeah,
of city because in Europe we don't
yeah,
have downtowns, right?
yeah. No. It's so
Yeah.
funny. I like because I'm originally from the West Coast. I'm from Oregon, so it's
Mm,
like hearing you say downtown is like, oh yeah, downtown. Yeah, city center.
yeah, city center.
Amazing. Yeah.
So Amsterdam is like very developed Lviv, but very big. So where I'm
Yeah.
from, it's very similar from the architecture point of view. Maybe just more Western because it was closer to England, has some Victorian
Yeah.
houses, but
Yeah.
yeah, sort of you can imagine the place I am from, and
Yeah.
so we didn't really want to move anywhere.
Mm.
We were preparing for the worst because my wife
Mm.
she was born and her parents live in the town that is now occupied and would be priority occupied because it's hosts the biggest um, how do I say it, nuclear power plant station in the Europe called Enerhodar.
Jeez.
That the one
Wow.
that they are threatening us with nuclear war. That's the place her mom worked
Oh
at
my
as an
God.
engineer. So we were preparing for the worst. For
Mm.
us, it meant we did crazy things. So we even half 6 months before the war, we convinced her grandparents at their 70s to sell the apartment in the downtown center of the city in Enerhodar and purchase another flat which is closer to the border on the west. At the time, everyone was saying that we were crazy, like there would nothing like that happen ever because there is no war, no at all.
Yeah.
But when the war started, we felt like we were geniuses because we saved lives for people.
Oh my God. It's
Um,
incredible. Wow.
so the latest that we needed to do, the most important was to convince her mom, which was an engineer and at the nuclear power plant, to move to the west,
Yeah. Yeah.
abandoning their whole lifestyle, the hometown, the city. We can't really get inside. It's a terrifying experience just talking
Yeah.
about this, but
Yeah, of course.
that was what happening 2 years ago.
Wow. I mean, I mean, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny in a non-funny way, if you know what I mean. It's like, we have all these experiences in our lives, we build businesses, and yet life goes on around these awful experiences. I mean, did you ever think that you would start over when you got to Vancouver? Did you think, no, I built the infrastructure to just keep going? COVID never ended.
Mm.
We can still go on and do these things. How did, I mean, it must have been such a strange experience to be doing this whilst kind of basically fleeing war.
Hmm. I guess that's why they call it resilience, don't they?
Yeah. Amazing.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Great answer.
it honestly never crossed my mind because
Mm.
our clients were always from the West, as they say. Now,
Yeah.
we had a couple of Ukrainian clients. Like most important was the government. Um, yeah, we were helping with some educational initiatives for the Ministry of Education and the Science of Ukraine, and a
Yeah.
couple more were like more of passion projects. I was helping my friends raise funds, and
Yeah.
one probably the most important in our career was the project of rebuilding schools after occupation and helping children get back to school.
Oh, wow.
And these schools were basically having the missiles inside, so you can imagine they were quite destroyed. So that was an
Gosh.
important thing. We
Yeah.
still keep doing this, and we still keep finding the support we can.
Mm.
Uh, we always can do more, and I'm sure we will at some
Yeah.
point increase our support because
Yeah.
it's necessary. But for us, it never meant to redesign the business because the business was going quite good, and for us
Yeah.
it just meant to keep going because now we have to support our families, our loved ones, our government,
Mm.
our nation, really, with this fight for existence. So we just doubled down on the business. We were we were working quite hard. There were challenges like how do you keep team afloat if they like you can think about yourself and you can put your emotion on the side and keep going, but some of your team members may feel shock, especially if their towns or parents are under occupation.
Of course.
So that was a big challenge that we were facing, and then not seeing your loved ones for many months, that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the rest was just an infrastructure.
Wow. I mean, it's a testament, as you say, to resilience, isn't it? To get to where you are now, even after these last couple of years.
Hmm.
Have has the experience changed how you decided to run your business? I mean, I appreciate from an infrastructure point of view, it was, you were already kind of set up. I mean, you were a digital company that could work globally for international clients, it's no problem. But have you changed your thinking in how you build a team or how you sort of the other sort of, I don't know, more sort of human sides of building a business?
It shaped everything.
Mm.
We understood that since we're now here and our team is in Europe, we now have different time zones. And the way we communicate with the team changed completely because for me it now meant that I exist within multiple time zones at the same time during the same day. So how do we prioritize what needs to get done? How do we prioritize async communication? Where do we store our information so that everybody has an access? And that meant writing down as many manuals as possible to templatize things as much as needed. And also,
Mm.
living in Vancouver became more expensive. It's just
Yeah.
the third most unaffordable city in the world. So coming here, you have to have
Yeah.
right set of expectations. It's going
Yeah.
to be tough because the fixed costs are just higher.
Yeah.
So you need to really figure out how to make it as lean as possible, but also as flexible and as efficient.
Mm.
Aiming for machine to operate in the ways that it doesn't really require your attention unless it's absolutely essential. For example, like when we review projects with our partners or now freelancers or team members, we do it in
Yeah.
a certain way that it has a follow-up structure. Use AI as much as possible. So we have an agenda prescribed upon the meeting. So when you showed up to the meeting, you already know when to and what to say. And your information or your feedback on that specific thing and not the rest. And sometimes we just have these meetings with the team when we try to prioritize their mental health and talk how do they feel around this project. Do they need any help? Where can we invest? Where can we support them? These are more of a Friday meetings, and
Sure.
Monday meetings are mainly about planning and strategizing and
Yeah.
developing a set of goals for the weeks that we are going to prioritize internally and also externally. That was one major shift, which is usually about optimizing the way things are run inside. But it also meant that we are not able to tackle as much projects as we used to, because we now have a very interesting mental state, right? We exist in parallel universes. We live now here in Vancouver, but the world still goes, and our families are there. So you still check every news in the morning and in the night, and you try to figure out what you can do, being physically in Canada.
Yeah.
So it meant for us that now we need to prioritize only the projects that we like, that bring us money and or make us famous or promote us. Basically, we've defined a formula which has just three points. First, they have to pay us as much as we want to invest our attention. Second is we need to like it. We need to be passionate about the project. It has to motivate us to do the research and do it as good as possible. And we have to be interested. And third is this project going to promote us? Is it a marketing initiative, or are we doing it just for the cash? Always, essentially, some of one point can always be absent. Like, for example, if Ukraine government didn't pay us, right? So, but we were still interested in the project, and we knew it would make a difference. And sometimes we are not allowed to promote ourselves through the projects because they're assigned under NDA, especially when we are talking about Fortune 500 companies. So we can accept the project when there is just two of these 3 points, but not less than that.
Not less than that. I mean, that's a really good point, because I think sometimes there is, I think you and I both probably agree on this, is that you have to be comfortable saying no to stuff if it doesn't sort of press on at least 2 of those 3 points. Was that kind of a major mindset to get over for you?
There are a couple of those. This one was big because we really sat with my wife, who is art director and co-founder at Ochi, to figure out what is that we wanted to do. Does it make sense to continue? And we said, yes, it does, but we need to figure out how to do it sustainably. And sustainably was the key word. From finance perspective, from any kind of perspective, just how can we grow sustainably and keep doing this? And so the mindset shift was very important, because now we realize that there is a limited amount and finite amount of time that we can invest for work. There is a thing that we are very passionate about, is that 90% of our clients really get their results. They get funded or sell the products. 10% of, I just don't know. I just don't know if they did. It's like they never responded to me, or are they still in the process? So with that statistic in mind, we knew that we will make an impact for the companies that we work for. But we need to filter these companies and take as little as possible, so that we can give them undivided attention and focus to help them succeed. So that meant for us defining how many projects per what time frame we're able to take, and when to say no. Mostly say no.
I mean, I mean that to be fair, I don't hear that often, right? I think what you're saying is that when you get really, really clear about the work that you want to do and the impact that you want to make, you can just be super clear about the filter when it comes to the people who come your way. But do you ever, I mean, I think as a creative, sometimes there's something will just be interesting, or it'll be, as you said, I know, like, if it doesn't hit sort of all three. It probably won't hit all three all the time. But do you ever have something that comes through the door that you think, oh, I really want to do this, like, for your friends, or maybe there's something that's really creatively exciting for your studio to do? Do you ever decide, okay, we're just going to do it, but we're just going to do it? But do you feel a little bit guilty about doing it? Do you know, do you, do you undercharge, that kind of thing?
I can do it for free if I like it so much, and if that makes if that fits the criteria, the rest of the criteria. But there is just a limited amount of the work I can do for free. That's it.
Yeah, right. So you're like, I could do one a year, maybe.
It's sometimes like I always want to leave some room for these projects, because they are the most important projects. They are the projects that motivates you to keep doing. And so we work with design a lot, and we love it, and we will keep doing it, and we want to push the envelope here in many projects. So, for example, developing our own website is a marketing initiative that you have to undertake, knowing that nobody will pay you. No, more important, moreover, you will have to pay somebody to keep doing this. But just from sustainable point of view, you have to have these projects afloat, something that interests you, something that keeps the fire going. So, for example, as a presentation agency, we are not known for developing websites or brand identities or Instagrams, but we are working with a couple of projects that we like so much that we decided to support them with some complementary services, and we are doing the work that we would love to do. We are fortunate to be paid for that, but that's something that I would say it's more of a hobby side. It's something that we're interested. It's not our center of the interest in our professional work, but that, I guess, that's the ability to decide. That's flexibility from the business that comes when you're an entrepreneur. And I think just to live at that level is, I'm very grateful for that, and I appreciate such an opportunity. So for me, this whole business is an ability to do passion projects. So when I say more passion than that, I'm just being ridiculous.
It's such a balance, isn't it? Because I mean, remember one time someone said to me that as a creative, when you see it's the idea of, how do they put it? It was the potential they could see in everything that came their way, right? So it's such a challenge sometimes to be like, oh, we have to say no to this project because you can see the potential and the opportunity that your impact could make. It's really funny because even when I was trying to arrange this podcast, is you created boundaries around when you would talk, because I'm 9 hours ahead of you, so it's 9:45 in the morning there where you are. So we had to kind of negotiate that. But for you, have you had to create boundaries around what you'll do and what you won't do, and in order to kind of balance out the sort of the passion side of things?
Yes.
Yes, it's a short answer.
It's a short answer. Yes, it's a very important bit, and just building the boundaries around work is probably one of the most important things you could develop in your business, because that's the infrastructures that makes things important. And the more you say no to things, the more you give the power to the things that you say yes. So, for example, for me, this project that we are doing right now, this recording, is an important project. But in order for me to be present and give you as much as possible, it has to happen under certain time conditions. It can't be too early because I won't be able to give you any value, and it can't be too late because you would be at the position where it'll be like 4 a.m.
Right. I mean, this is extenuating circumstances, to be fair. I mean, I think you're the furthest west I've ever spoken to. I think,
it's nothing further.
Possibly. But I mean, it's fair enough, right? It's like, I mean, I think that's something I've had to learn, is that I don't know if it's it probably comes from like a desire to people please or something, but I think and when you first start out, you really want to say yes to stuff. You want to say yes to everything that you possibly can. You want to you want to offer a good service, but you conflate offering a good service with kind of doing everything, allowing yourself to do anything, and saying. And I think that took me probably
Right.
a good couple of years to really learn how to do that. I mean, I'm still not great at it, hand on heart, but to say no to stuff and say, actually, as you said, when you say no to everything, the stuff you say yes to has much more power, much more resonance with you, and also probably means more to you as well, right?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Interesting then that what you say is basically all occupies my mind every day, because it's so important, because it's the cornerstone of everything that we do. How do we say no? What are the things that we say no to? When do I do this and when do I do that? And how do I define what's the best customer experience that I want to deliver? But what is also my life beyond the work that I do?
Right.
So you live in a chaos, and that's okay. That's fine. I just try to accept that. I just try to
Yeah.
accept that there is always something happening that you're not in control of, and as much as you can control, you have to enjoy that control. That comes. It also comes at a certain price, being your own boss. I guess as a creative people, we like to do more things that brings us joy and happiness, and just test out our creativity. But that's not important. That is actually very easy. It's very easy to do something that you like. It's very hard to do something that you hate. That makes the whole difference.
Oh,
And
yes.
success is on the other side of discomfort. It's not in doing repetitively easy things. It's doing repetitively hard things, so that over time, this consistency builds you something.
Yeah. I mean, never truer words have been spoken. I think it's true. I remember reading some book the other day about, they were talking about how, in order, if you want to scale a business, it's actually the boring stuff that you have to double down on if you want to scale. It's the stuff that makes you want to pull your eyes out because it's so boring. It's templates, and it's infrastructure, and it's people management systems, and it's finance. Oh, I mean, the amount of times it was like a spreadsheet, HR, all that stuff. It's not the sexy stuff. It's not the stuff that people are like, oh, wow, that's so amazing. I love that financial spreadsheet you did. There's none of that happening. You don't put on your social media how your beautiful, HR system. But I think that's the thing is, like, as creatives, I think this is partly the reason why I did this podcast, because I was thinking about how so many people are always, especially in the creative industry, we're always putting out like the creative work that we do, but we never really talk about that stuff, like the stuff that's like not sexy, that really kind of sucks a little bit, that most of us drag our feet on because it's not as interesting as doing the stuff that really brings us joy.
Right.
So for you, like, I mean, how big is your team now? You've got, did you say 11 people? Have I made that up?
I think I would love to have 11 people.
Why
it's
did
a
I
good
make
number.
that up? I don't know where I came up with that. But
we have up to 15 contractors for different reasons and different priorities. Partners, many more, but under 10. It's our core is me and my wife, for sure. It's 2 that are physically present here in Vancouver, and the rest is spread throughout the world. So something is seasonal, and something is up for a project. Core team 2, smaller team under 10, and the rest. It's a big network, but not as big.
I mean, it's a great way to expand and contract. Yeah. I mean, completely. It's a great way to expand and contract, especially when you're small, because you can take on larger projects if you need to, without having to take on the financial risk of hiring.
Yeah, certainly.
I've got so many other questions for you, but yeah. Go ahead.
Your podcast and the things like this and the books like that they help to help develop business side of things for the creatives, and supplying creatives with the tools that allow them to build sustainable businesses and even help them do more of the work they like, are the most helpful and the most essential there is, because otherwise it's just a constant freelance, figuring out how to like what you do and how to not hate yourself. and when to stop and when not. So deciding on the amount of projects you're able to take, on the projects that you would love to take, takes a lot of courage, and being honest with you and trying to really set the tone and the boundaries of what you accept and what you don't. And that's where the negotiation comes, and that's where the definition of your value comes, and that's an ability to communicate your value comes, and that comes to presentation. How do you present yourself?
Yeah.
And that's how we arrive at what we do. Yeah.
So what does the future hold for you then? What do you think?
A vacation, certainly. Very soon.
A vacation. Where are you going to go?
Not sure yet. It's still in the talks.
Okay.
Probably in Europe, because I really want to see my parents and my sister. And there are a couple things that we haven't done yet that we really want. But beside that, I trying to slow things down. There are many areas of life that I think were too fast happening, too strong and too powerful. So I'm trying to slow things down on the production side. We're trying to focus on building up a refreshed portfolio, building up an updated website, building up shop of the things that we already developed that I think many people can appreciate, and taking maybe less service design projects, or taking more of the service design projects that we want to be well known for. Also, it's also important to know what you want to be known for, right? So we've did a lot of presentations, but what are the presentations that define us? When you say Ochi Design, what can you imagine? And when you say presentations, at what understanding, what visual assets comes and the Ochi Design.
Yeah.
So that's where we're trying to decide now what will be happening next 5 to 10 years. But certainly the goal is to be one of the most influential and recognizable studio at the times that develops these tailored presentations and powerful projects. But then maybe AI can shape that notion. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, go for it. Do it. What does success look like then for you?
I wish I knew.
I ask everyone this question, and it's always so interesting, the answer, because I think that generally it's never, I want to make loads of money and I want to have. I'm curious, what does success look like for you?
I wish I knew. I don't think I know yet. Everything I wanted and I wished for, I had. And when the time came, I thought I didn't have enough.
Yeah.
So I think everybody can relate to that, because it's so tricky when you think, okay, once I land that project, I win that award, I have that amount of income, I have that team member, everything will be so good. It just becomes harder.
Yeah, you just put the bar. It's like, I always think of it as like there's like a finish line that we keep pushing back further, that we keep hoping that once we cross that finish line, then we'll be like, oh, I've made it. And then you're like, oh, but then there's this other finish line that I'm really interested in, and I want to keep going for that one. Do you find that success actually is really about, I mean, I don't want to sound all a bit woo-woo, but like being a bit more in the now, being more like, success for you is just being happy with what is now, as opposed to, and being comfortable with it, because you just said that you have everything that you've ever really wanted. So it's like, but then how do you stay motivated? How do you stay driven if you think? That was a layered question, but
time flies, and then you understand that there are things that you really enjoy doing, and there are things that are very important. And otherwise, if you won't do them, nothing will be ever happening. So we started from me saying that I was about to become a prosecutor, and I was studying at the law school. So the whole point of going to Canada for this gap year is to slow things down and to pause this whole law school experience and trying to figure out what is this that I want to do, because certainly I didn't want to become a lawyer, especially in Ukraine. At that time, we are talking about very different Ukraine, but at that time, I didn't want to do it, and I don't think the decision to become a lawyer was even mine. in the first place. So I was trying to figure out what is that thing that bugs me. What is that creativity? Is there a profession here? What I have to do? And I always wanted to be a musician. So yeah, I thought I will come to Canada. I will spend some time here. I will figure out how to become a developed musician, and I'll be successful.
Yeah.
But on the way through, I figured out that basically not the music is great. I would like to play music as much as possible, but the creative side of business, that's something that was always turning me on, because when I was trying to explain somebody to a friend, I was always talking to him from a branding perspective, which I didn't understand at the time.
Right.
So basically, that gut feeling about the brand, how do you see and perceive the customers, what the promises the brand has for you.
Yeah.
You're in Netherlands, so you can imagine the talks about football fans and football clubs, and how does they organize as a tribe around one specific brand that has a promise and have a collective experience sharing that magnitude of things. So that was always on my mind. I just didn't know that it exists and it can be defined as a profession. So yeah,
Wow.
basically success for me is yet to be defined, because
I love
I
it.
wanted to become a creative professional and I am one.
So you've done it. Next, if you want to
Um,
become like a champion scuba diver, maybe that's the next thing. You can work towards that if you want to.
I mean, I, I mean, for us as a small business, is always a competition on like on the Olympic level, because you have to
Yeah.
be like you have to be an athlete in a way to sustainably
Yeah.
do things and achieve great success. But I think
Yeah.
we are well known for an angle that we do. We are well known for unique things that we bring to the industry, and I think if we can keep it as it is and do just more of it and more of what we like, that will be great. But also success means for me is that this can exist without me,
Yeah.
which doesn't yet come to fruition. We will see how it happens next. I don't want to build an agency that somebody else will work. I want to be able in 10 years come to this work and still take on creative projects as much as possible,
Yeah.
as much as I want, or maybe in 20 years, in 30 years. But also I
Yeah.
want this business to exist as a third party entity that can develop sustainable income. Yeah, and just sustain me when I don't want to work. And sometimes this happens. And as we are all people and
Yeah.
humans, there are things that
Yeah.
there are these times. So
I
yeah,
love
I
it.
would like this to build a more sustainable business on its own.
Yeah. With
I will
that.
call it a success,
Yeah. Yeah. I can. Well, I agree completely.
and be
Oh,
healthy.
this is and be healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I just listened to this really interesting podcast with Gabor Mate. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Mm.
He wrote The Myth of Normal and these really other interesting books about basically trauma and how it impacts your health and everything. And he did his podcast with this doctor in London. I can't remember his name. And I don't know, he was just talking about like that, when people are, when they're on their deathbeds, they're not really wishing that they worked really hard. They're not really wish they made that meeting. They're really wishing for like being that they were healthy in their life and that they had good relationships and they were successful doing something that they loved. And I just think that creatives are already one foot in that direction because generally they're doing something that they are passionate about. And it's such a nice thing to be able to speak to people like you and hear more about your journey and what you're doing and what success looks like for you. So thank you.
Mm.
Um, I always do some comedy quick fire questions for people at the end of the pod just to kind of keep them on their toes. Do you mind if we do a couple or a few?
Of course.
Nah? Okay. What's the most unusual source of inspiration you've had for a design project?
Do I have to respond instantly? Do I have a couple of seconds
We
to
can.
think?
You have a couple seconds, of course.
All right. It has to be a short answer, or I can ramble.
You can ramble.
All right. I think everything. Everything
Everything.
from
Everything.
movies, like IKEA visiting. I mean, like everything, and like from food. Sometimes we sit in a cafe and we talk about things, and then we look at this menu and we realize, wow, what a great design, what a nice grid, and what a nice typography.
Yeah.
And also we can improve something. So we start the discussion. And yesterday we
Yeah.
went to this museum, which is interesting because it's Canada. It doesn't has a long history of things.
Sure.
It's very newly developed country,
Yeah.
and so we have this just near our building. There is a building from 1912
Yeah.
with the heritage inside. So we went inside. Xenia always wanted to go there. We were always going on Monday, but on Monday it's closed. So it was like a
Yeah.
couple of months of not going but wanting. And then
Yeah.
when we went inside yesterday, we realized there are so many things that we can grab inspiration from, especially like watches and clocks from the Art
Mm.
Nouveau dials and numerals and numbers, and how does they use
Yeah.
fonts in order to communicate things like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So yesterday we came home and we started categorizing all those things and trying to figure out how do we can apply this to a current projects that we have about classic
Yeah.
musical festival and that Art Nouveau vibe. So I think from everything really,
Right.
because it's your
I love that.
work, you basically spot this. You have to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great answer. Everything is inspiration if you're looking for it. I think that's the key, right?
I mean, yeah, certainly. Sometimes I can see like people who can advancedly play piano when they sit in the cafes. I can hear like D minor, C majors, things like that. So we
Yeah.
don't take it for granted, but they are basically deconstructing music
Yeah.
into hammas and into notes, and that's important. Then when you are a designer, you can see typography and fonts and
Yeah.
colors and the whole vibe.
Yeah. I agree completely. So if your studio had a mascot, what would it be and why?
Eyes. We
Ice.
have eyes. Why? Because Ochi is about visual communication, and I believe that
Mm.
everything that can be shown is much more powerful than said. Everything
Mm.
can be shown, and the better the bigger is the impact. So the mascot
Mm.
is the eyes, but we were thinking about bee, like a flying bee. I don't know why it's
Mm.
not connected to anything. It's just something. So you'll see.
There's an
Maybe you'll have one.
yeah. There's an industriousness about bees, though, isn't it? That they're also amazing and they're part of a collective, and yeah. I
Beautiful.
mean, yeah, they're
Golden.
amazing. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, one last question.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite thing about your job?
Seeing the impact, seeing that something that you've designed, seeing
Mm.
something that you've developed and thought can bring as much value to the people. Sometimes
Mm.
creating jobs, defining industries. And for example, when we were helping this company in 2020, we were helping the company. I'm not allowed to mention the name. Basically, in the
Fine.
German ACG sector and sustainability, a startup. They were going for like 10 millions, I think, at the time,
Wow.
having like from 6 to 16 employees.
Wow.
And we were able to help and shape their pitch deck. They raised, I'm not sure, but they were bought for around like 100 something.
Wow.
And in 6 months, they grew to like 60 employees.
Wow.
That's what shared vision is able to deliver when you can have it
Mm.
so narrowly and so clearly defined. Sometimes these presentations really can shape the industry, and when you see that, you're like amazed. A couple of weeks from now, and there is a project that raised like 2 million and 2.5 million,
Mm.
which was a passion project for college dropouts, ex-employees of some corporation, that now is a
Mm.
job with real people, with a real office that delivers a product for real customers. So when you
Yeah.
have that, that's amazing. We don't like working with startups too much because they never have cash, and that's important. That's like
Yeah.
the things that you have to
It's
take
true.
bluntly.
Yeah.
But something they're defining and developing, especially from technology point of view, it's
Mm.
magnificent. That's why sometimes we do it.
Mm. Wow, what a great note to end on. That's amazing. Ihor, thank you so much for your time. It has been so great to talk to you, and really appreciate your candor and being so open about your work and your experience so far. It's quite a story. So if people want to find your work, where can they find you?
Right. So thank you for inviting me, Lindsay. Thank you very
Pleasure.
much. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure. People
thank
can
you.
find me on everything related to Ochi and Ochi Design. ochi.design is the website, and
Mhm.
ochi/design is the Instagram page.
Mhm.
Same name goes for Dribble and Behance, which are trying to keep up to date. And
Yeah,
I'm Ihor Hulyahrodskyy, so you can reach out to me as you wish, and you can
yeah,
network and accelerate.
yeah, amazing. Oh, well, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again to Ihor for telling his story and the story of Ochi Design. Once again, if you enjoyed this episode, please like it, subscribe, share with a friend, all those sorts of things. Episodes drop every other Tuesday. Until then, be well. Understories was produced by Cloudfields and Kieran Fowler. The music was by Avez, and the branding was by Joe Jones. See you in a couple weeks.